20 Democratic senators ask Supreme Court to reject once fringe theory in elections case. I covered this before on my channel, but the, what is it, like the independent state legislature theory or some shit? New York Times website, I have a paywall blocker, and for whatever reason, it does this to the website, so, you know, just bear with me. I'm not paying the New York Times, so I'm getting their content for free, so this is the cost. And I'm publicizing, so not only am I getting the content for free, but I'm sharing it with the rest of the class. The only thing I ask you is to just deal with this. If someone was to provide to me a better ad blocker that doesn't do this, or paywall, you know, whatever, bypass that doesn't do that, I'd love that. But for now, that's what I'm dealing with. A group of 20 Democratic senators filed a brief on Wednesday urging the Supreme Court to reject a legal argument that would give state legislatures extraordinary power over federal elections. The brief, filed by Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, draws parallels to the checks and balances of the federal government, especially Congress, as clear indication that the so-called independent state legislature theory runs afoul of the Constitution. Now, again, what is this theory? I know the New York Times is going to describe it a little bit here, but basically, if this theory were to be, you know, ruled to be accurate by the Supreme Court, what it would basically mean is democracy is over, and whatever the state legislatures are right now is just going to be forever, and they're basically going to decide every election in the state legislature. It gives the state legislature more power. So, like, for example, let's look at Pennsylvania, right? Let's look at Michigan, right? These states, right, what they could do is, doesn't matter if a Democrat wins, you know, they get 10 more million votes in that state's, you know, fucking presidential election. Who knows, right? Doesn't matter. They will have the power to decide what the electors are. And that's essentially what this case is about. Now, I don't know. Is the Supreme Court brazen enough to just destroy U.S. democracy right now? Like, is it possible that they'll destroy it right now? I don't know. Honestly, I can't tell you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Supreme Court would never do this. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that because I don't know. I have no fucking idea. All right. The senators argue, although while the Constitution grants state legislatures the responsibility of setting the time, location, and manner of federal elections, the Constitution also requires state legislatures to follow the same procedures when making rules for federal elections that they use to make other state laws. The clause, they write, does not allow state legislatures to bypass the same restrictions imposed by state constitutions, the very documents that create and empower them. Once considered a fringe argument only found in the far reaches of conservative legal thought, the independent state legislature theory is now at the center of a redistricting case in North Carolina before the Supreme Court, set to be heard in December. That case, Moore v. Harper, involves a congressional map drawn by the Republican-led legislature that was rejected by the state Supreme Court as a partisan gerrymander. Republican lawmakers sued, arguing that the court had no authority to reject the map, that North Carolina Republicans have argued that the clause means state legislatures alone are responsible for drawing congressional districts, and the courts have no role to play. So what that means is gerrymandering no longer exists. There's no such thing as gerrymandering, and what I mean by that is that gerrymandering is when we know, hey, this district is fucked up, and then we can take, you know, steps to unfuck it, right? That's gerrymandering. But what this is going to allow them to do is to gerrymander the districts with no ceiling, right? It's going to turn into like that fucking Dan Crenshaw's district in fucking Texas or some shit, right? That's crazy fucking shit. Should the Supreme Court side with North Carolina Republicans, it could give state legislatures across the country broad authority to write voting laws, draw district maps, and set other electoral rules without being subject to review by the state. Some legal scholars argue that it could open up the possibility that a legislature could subvert the will of the people in a presidential election. Quote, the nightmare scenario is that a legislature displeased with how an election official on the ground has interpreted her state's election laws would invoke the theory as a pretext to refuse to certify the results of a presidential election and instead select its own slate of electors. So that's the big thing here. It just gives them power that they don't have. It's just that simple. Oh, man, fuck me. Fuck. Ms. Klobuchar said she and other senators filed the brief as part of a fight against continuing threats to democracy. Quote, what we've seen are state legislative efforts to threaten our democratic processes and really limit opportunities for people to vote, she said in a brief interview. This is so critical to, with my colleagues urge the Supreme Court to blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's good. I'm glad that they're mentioning it. It's better the Democrats are acknowledging that the train is coming rather than just pretending the train is not coming. But does anyone really think a Democratic letter is going to change the Supreme Court their mind? Like Clarence Thomas is going to go like, oh, actually, now that you sent me this letter, I'm really rethinking my... That's not a thing. That's not happening. So again, really what this is doing is this is just an excuse for this to get into the news and for more people to talk about it and prepare for it. That's really what this letter is. And that's why I'm talking to you about it, because I'm trying to glean any and all value that I possibly can from this letter. And again, that is the only value, is this idea that this can be bumped in the news and that more people will talk about it and more people will know about it. So if you did not know about the independent state legislature theory that right-wingers are trying to get the Supreme Court to side on, now you do. Now you know the train is coming. Thank you, Amy Klobuchar. So there you go. But either way, the train is still coming, and needless to say, it's not going to stop. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's possible, right? It's possible. But, if I had $5,000 to bet on which way the Supreme Court would rule on this case, needless to say, I don't know if I would feel comfortable betting, but if I were to bet, I would bet that they will rule in favor of the independent state legislature theory, because at this point, what do they have to lose? What do they have to lose? Really, think about it. What do they have to lose? I don't know. So anyway, there you go. That's the last news item for today.